Duncan Foss has won the overall driver's title and Nissan the manufacturer's championship, but there's still plenty at stake at the Ford Carnival City 400, the final round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship on November the 30th and December the 1st. The co-drivers overall championship is still up for grabs, as are the Class D and Class E championship chases, and it is in Class D where there's a huge dogfight which is going to hold much of the interest. There are also several other title cameos which will ensure the end-of-season race is not lacking in excitement. Ford and Toyota will be determined to put an end to a Nissan winning streak that takes in all 7 successive events this season, with Toyota hoping to emulate last year's win by Bevan Bertholdt and Robin Houghton in the Toyota. The win by Foss and Pitchford in the factory Nissan Navara on the recent Toyota Dealer 400 wrapped up the overall driver's title for former champ Foss, but Pitchford has missed 2 races this season through overseas commitments and trails teammate Francois Jordan by just 7 points in the co-drivers championship. It should be a fantastic matchup. Foss and Pitchford, and on 2 occasions Foss and deputy co-driver Richard Leek have had some interesting confrontations down the years with Jordan and veteran Hannes Grobler. Another clash between the 2 factory Nissan teams with the title at stake is an exciting prospect. Ivar Tollefsen in a third works Navara, again partnered by VZ van Zyl in the absence of his full-time but injured co-Quinn Evans, has the inside track on 3rd place in the driver championship. Behind him, there's an interesting situation with the 2 Ford Ranger factory crews, former champions Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholthammer, and Brandon Harkis and Johan Moore locked in a tie. New kids on the block, Mark Ferguson and Craig West in the special steel Ford Ranger, and the ultra-consistent Kobus van Tonder with Rian Gualpa in their Unifreight Ford Ranger supplement the Ford Challenge. Ford would love to win their event and, like Toyota, put an end to Nissan's domination in 2007. For their part, Toyota have twice come close to winning this season, with Castrol Toyota Hilux pair Mark Ronier and Chris Birkin literally tossing away wins on the Toyota 1000 Desert Race and the Amatole 500 within sight of the line. They will be looking to end on a high note, and teammates Bertholdt and Houghton will be looking for history to repeat itself to salvage their season somewhat. Backup will come from Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in the 3rd Castrol Toyota Hilux, and Higu and Jaap de Bruin in the Micron XL Toyota Hilux. Both teams have performed consistently, but would be surprise winners. It is Class D, however, that will hold most of the interest. Mathematically, there are 7 crews who could win the title, although some of the permutations are highly unlikely. The water is also muddled a little by Kutsia Labuschagne and Johan Gerber in the Race Sonics Nissan Hardbody. Gerber missed the Sun City 400, which Labuschagne finished on his own, and that puts him 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, with Gerber 7th in the co-driver stakes. Ahead of Labuschagne are Cliff and Louis Weichelt in the Bosel Toyota Hilux, who are 5 points ahead of Henry and Maurice Matten in the Ryobi Nissan Hardbody. Impressive Toyota Hilux rookies Ramon Besaidnout and Stefan Locke are 4th and 3rd respectively in the driver and co-driver championships, with Yuri Duplessis and Andre Duplessis in the BB Auto Nissan Hardbody, and Harold and Tian Kun's Land Rover also right in the championship frame. Only 11 points separate the first 5 crews, and that sets the scene for a real dogfight. The Zermattens have won 3 times this season, while consistency has kept the other teams in the picture, and anything could happen at Carnival City. Class E also has back-to-front picture when it comes to the driver and co-driver titles. Jack Peckham in the factory Ford Ranger leads the driver stakes from Jannie Visser in the Castrol Team Barbaspan Toyota Hilux with 10 points the difference. But on the co-driver side, it's Joks Leroux, who sits alongside Visser, who leads the title race also by 10 points from Lucio Santoro, who partners Peckham. That situation is the result of Santoro falling ill during the Amatole 500, with Peckham finishing the event on his own. Mathematics also keeps Sharon Parkhuizen, who partners husband George in the Rurikon Toyota Hilux, in the hunt for the co-driver's title. She's only 5 points behind Santoro, and the battle between the 3 crews will be another highlight in and around Brakpan. Other crews, however, could add to the drama. Brian Martin and Oki Fourie in their Castrol Toyota Hilux, and Thomas Rundle with Brian Roberts in the Baden Tyre Services Nissan Hardbody will be looking to rescue disappointing seasons, while brothers Mark and Stuart Moffat in a Bosel Toyota Hilux are also potential winners. And at the end of more than 3,500 kilometers of racing, these are the figures that makes the most interesting reading. Grobler and Jordan need to keep another teammate away from second place. A win counts for 25 points on the log, while the Ford pair will want third desperately. For the Ford squad, it's been a year with ups and downs. They were primed and ready after the Special Production Car Championship win in 2006, but failed to deliver on a lot of that promise just 12 months later.
Yeah, in 2006 was our inaugural year with the SP cars, and it's a difficult question to what made it so much better in 2006 and 2007. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that in 2006 we didn't have any DNFs. Which is the ultimate. If you don't get out the car and you finish all the races, you've got to be in the points, and that's what we haven't done this year. When I say we, Kenny and myself have had a difficult year, but the rest of the teams had quite a good year. But talking for myself and Kenny, we've had 3 DNFs this year, so definitely that's been the problem in 2007. When I look back at those DNFs, I've got to think that some of the problem must come from myself, some driver errors here and there, and at the Nissan Sugar Belt event, which was held in Shishlui this year, it was very, very slippy. I made a mistake. We went off the track and we got T-boned by another competitor. And then at the Limpopo race, I made a mistake in the riverbed. We got stuck in the riverbed for 15 minutes while leading the race. So that was a huge mistake. And then this last race as well, somewhere along the line we must have hit a big rock somewhere and we damaged the rear suspension. So when I look back, I can only point the fingers at myself, you know. The car's been very good. I think it's been even more competitive this year than last year. But to answer your question, I've got to blame myself for some of it. Not all of it, but some of it.
What has the game plan been compared to other teams in the ABSA Championship in 2007?
You know, it's always been our game plan. When I say our game plan, Ford Motor Company South Africa and Neil Woolridge Motors' game plan to increase the number of Fords racing. Unfortunately, we don't have a huge budget compared to some of the other manufactured teams, but we've always wanted to get more privateers involved. So we decided a couple of years ago that to slowly build up the number of cars, and that's what we've done. To date, we've built 8 off-road racing cars for Ford Motor Company. Last year, we had 2 SP cars racing. We built another 2 new SP cars in 2007, which we passed on to privateers. All our Class E cars have also gone down to privateers. So that's our game plan, is to steadily increase the number of Fords racing. We'll have some more racing next year, so that's been our game plan, and it's working nicely. We've got some competitive guys racing, and the cars are all proving to go well.
And how did the decision come about to get Brandon Harkis behind the wheel of a Ford?
Well, this last year, it was the first year that we made a decisive decision to get another works driver, if we could use that terminology. And we hired Brandon Harkis to come and join us. Brandon has been in racing all his life, very successful in his own racing cars. He builds the BAT special vehicles, which he's very good at. And we decided to bring him into the team because we felt he was young. He had a lot to offer us in the way of technology and experience on that side, and it's proved also a good move. He's had his first year with us. Hopefully he's going to finish 3rd in the SP class in the championship, or 4th. So we're very happy with that result. So much so that we actually level pegging on points going into the last leg of the race. So there's going to be a bit of rivalry between him and I to see who wins the last race. But that's what we've done to increase the team. And then we also brought on Jack Peckham and Lucio Santoro, who drive the Class E vehicle for us. Also proved to be a great move. They're leading the championship. They've led the championship just about all year. They've got a 10-point lead going into the last race, so hopefully they can just finish the race. And they should walk away with the Class E championship, which is very important to us and to Ford Motor Company. The 3-litre diesel is the main Ranger which is sold by Ford Motor Company, so it's a very important class to us. It's also a class that it's a grassroots class of production vehicle racing. So we need to nurture that, and we'll be going in even a bigger effort into Class E next year.
What's in store for next year? Who's going and who's staying, Neil?
For 2008, we'll be running a very similar team. We haven't finalized the exact makeup of the team, but I'm sure it's going to be very, very similar to what we've done this year. I can't elaborate too much on exactly what the makeup of the cars are going to be, but I can tell you that there's some very exciting things that are going to be coming from Ford Racing. Unfortunately, it won't be in the first event of next year, but as the year progresses, you'll definitely see a lot more noise from Ford Racing, and I think a lot closer to the front. We've had a good year. The cars have been reliable. We've been able to refine them as the year's gone on, and we're just getting better and better at it. But the dice hasn't fallen for me and Kenny this year, so hopefully next year it does again. In saying that, I can't complain. You know, we've had fantastic years. Last year we were the only competitors to finish every single race. We won the SP class first time out. We won Class E last year as well, so I can't complain. You've got to take the good and the bad, but hopefully there's some more good next year.
How solid is the Nissan outfit compared to other teams running in the championship?
Look, it's very difficult for another manufacturer to say how good another manufacturer is, but I think all credit must go to Nissan. They've got a very good team. They've got a good driver makeup. They've got a very good manager in Glenn Hall, and they've got a good product. There's no two ways about it. The Nissan Navara engine's a strong engine. I think they get a lot of input and support from Nissan in Japan, whereas we battle a little bit on that side. And they've got a good package. They've been going quite a while. They've built cars that they've sent overseas into Europe. Those cars have campaigned successfully, and I think they're reaping the benefit of those. You know, any problems that they have during the Dakar or any other big events, those faults come straight back to South Africa, and they're fed into the team. So all credit to them. They've got a very good package. But in saying that, Toyota and ourselves are right at their backsides, and we're going to try and take it away, make no doubt.
How important is the physical fitness side, and how does it affect the mental state of good driving?
You know, it's a question everybody asks me, and as you get older, you don't quite know how to answer this question on the physical side, but the physicality is important. I've seen very, very young and very, very fit guys get into racing cars and almost fall out of the cars after a race. So it's important to be in good shape. I don't think you have to be a peak athlete as in Formula One or anything like that, but it's important to be in good shape. You sit in the car for 6 hours. If you have a problem, it can be up to 8 hours. But I think more importantly is the mental side of things. I think you really need to be strong on that side to stay concentrated for 6 hours, 7 hours, sometimes more, in all sorts of varying conditions, slippery, wet, dusty, to hold back when you need to hold back and to push when you need to push, and to save the car. It's very important to save the car. That old saying, to finish first, you must first finish, and that's very, very true in off-road racing. You've got to get to the finish. But at the same time, you can't go too slowly. So I think the mental aspect is probably more important than the physical side. We've seen it with youngsters that come into the racing and all that. They're very fast in the beginning, but after an hour or two, you see them starting to slow off and things like that. And I think in most endurance races, you see this type of thing. You see in the Dakar, the older guys still do very, very well. That experience, there's no substitute for experience, and the mental side comes into that, most definitely.
The camaraderie amongst the off-roaders is great, isn't it?
It is. We're very fortunate in off-road racing, and I think it's one of the few facets of motorsport, certainly in South Africa, where there's a good camaraderie. You often see guys will stop for each other. Although I must say in the past years with advent of more manufacturers and it become more competitive, there's not quite as much, but it's still very, very good. And it's nice, it's enjoyable, because at the end of the day, I think if you enjoy something you're really doing, you're good at it. So it's an important side of it, yeah.
Off-road vehicles come and go, and a lot of selling and trading goes on. What's the state of your old steed, and what's going on in the trading scene this season?
At the beginning of this year, we sold our championship-winning car to Cobus van Tonde from Harrismith, who runs under the Unifreight, his own company, and he's had a very good year. As I said earlier on, it's always been our plan to get our cars back to privateers, and it's been good to see that car do so well, because it was a special car. It was the first car that we built in the SP class, and it's still going with the same engine, same gearbox and everything. So it's been a fantastic car, and Cobus is really doing a good job for us, and he'll be in the privateer plan again for next year. And then just recently we sold the sister car to that to Mark Ferguson. Mark Ferguson also has his own company in Johannesburg. He's an ex-bike racer, and also used to race in the special vehicle category a couple of years ago. Been out of the sport for a while, and we're expecting some good things from him as well. And it's just great to have all the privateers involved. It just makes the whole thing that much better. And then our Class E championship winning car from 2 years ago was sold to Cor van Os, who's a businessman in Botswana, in Gaborone, and he's also doing very well in that car. So looking forward to supporting all the privateers next year.
From ABSA, going off the beaten track to find solutions.
Hollywood could not have scripted it better. A winner-takes-all confrontation in the special vehicle category at the Ford Carnival City 400, the final round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship on November the 30th and December the 1st. While 2 of the 3 championships in the Special Vehicle Championship have already been settled, the Prestige Overall and Class A titles are still at stake. And just to make matters more mouth-watering, a winner-takes-all scenario exists between just 2 crews. Just 5 points separate leaders Nick and Ryan Harper in the Atlas Copco bat, and Evan Hutchison and Akin Bergman in the Motorite bat in the overall stakes. In the Class A Championship, it's even closer, with just 2 points separating the 2 crews. Adding to all that intrigue is a severe contrast in styles. The Harpers have won once this season and like to grind away at the opposition. Hutchison and Bergman have won 3 times and are chargers. It all adds up to fascinating battle between the 2 teams with very high stakes, but there are more factors to add to the intrigue. There are at least a half a dozen other crews who could win at Carnival City, and there's a bottleneck of teams fighting over 3rd place in the championship. Outgoing champions Alfie Cox with Henny Terstege in the second motorite bat are tied with Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewald in a Regent Racing bat. With Clint Gibson in his absolute bat in the thick of things in the Drivers' Championship too. Only 2 points behind this group are former champions Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau in the Total Motorsport Porter. And a point behind them are Colin Matthews and Alan Smith in the Century Property Development bat, who have emerged as a powerful force over the latter part of the season. Hutchison and Bergman will be looking to Cox and Terstege to run interference, and the Harpers will be hoping that Atlas Copco teammates Gary Berthold and Jeff Minute in a Porter can find some kind of form. But first with Henry Kirstein and now with Minute, it has not been a happy season for Berthold. Being beaten into 2nd place by Matthews and Smith on the recent Toyota Dealer 400 in Mpumalanga hurt the Harpers, but helped set up a dream finish to the season. It meant that in the overall championship, a win for Hutchison and Bergman at the Ford Carnival City 400 and a 2nd for the Harpers would leave the Atlas Copco pair a point shy of winning the title. Over the years, the Ford Carnival City 400 has earned a reputation as a wet race, but wet or dry this year, the stage is set for an absolute cracker of a race. While Hendrik and Jan Kraai's Regent Racing bat wrapped up the Class B Championship after 5 successive wins, the battle for 2nd place is a fascinating one. The fact that only a single point separates the 2 teams in contention is enough to make it a zinger. But the fact that family is involved with the father trying to fight off 2 sons makes it even more intriguing. Bez Besaidnout and Johan de Bruin in an Adenko bat are 1 point ahead of Johan and Etienne Besaidnout, who won the recent Toyota Dealer 400 in another Adenko bat. The Kraais, after a recent hiccup or 2, would like to end on a high note and will start as the obvious favourites. But the Battle of the Besaidnout is going to be a focal point and opens up some interesting thoughts in terms of team orders, which comes into play. The Class S title has also been done and dusted and could lead to something of an anticlimax. Veterans Richard Schilling and Chris Davies in the ASCO have dominated the class throughout the season and wrapped up the title on the Toyota event. With the title in the bag, the pressure is off Schilling and Davies, but it could be another of their battles with arch rivals, outgoing drivers champions Nick Gosler and Richard Carolyn in the Kopenhagen Hotel Super Team Raceco. Glenn Gibson and Mark Whitehurst in the Absolute ASCO are also sure to make it an interesting 3-way battle. Class A has been hugely competitive all season, and off-road pundits always expected the title race to go all the way to the wire. The only real surprise is that at the death, there are only 2 teams involved in the final winner-take-all battle. the Specials point spread, with just 5 points that separate the top challengers. Will it be Harper and Harper, or 2005 champion Hutchison with Bergman? Cox and Terceja's mid-season non-finishes cost them dearly. The Ford Carnival City 400 in and around the East Rand has always been a wet race, and very rarely has the whole 2 days not at least provided one solid and spectacular storm to cool things down. In 2006 it was no different, and it turned out to be the type of race where Olympic gold swimming medalists Rhett Neethling and Roland Skuman would have been able to provide very solid competition for the 4x4 vehicles, who were perilously close to either drowning or burning out clutches galore. It had rained solidly for 2 days, and the route, which heads out to Nigel and then Heidelberg and the surrounds, was covered in H2O. What it did mean was that the field bunched up and produced some fast and spectacular driving. The Ford SP team of Woolridge and Scholthammer were just wrapping up the SP class win, while Grobler and Jordan had clinched the national championship. For Grobler, a 4th trophy in the cabinet of that particular ilk. But the muddy ruts, turned out by the faster and quicker traffic, grabbed and held on to a lot of competitors, and a tow rope was standard issue. Should be the same again this year, actually. Berthold and Houghton stormed to a surprise win, while the route designed by the Koppel Club is always a good varied mix of interesting but fair challenges. It will also throw a few mountain passes as well as fast sections at the drivers and navigators. The prologue to determine the starting order for Saturday's racing will be run over 70 kilometers, while the day's racing will be confined to 2 180k loops split by a designated service point or D-control at the gambling resort in Brakpan. Hutchison and Bergman won in 6 hours and 12 minutes last year in the Specials and brought home an unprecedented clean sweep for the silver and black band motorite. But for the Specials, it's hell when it rains. However, if it's wet, you really trade one evil for another, as there's no dust, but the water gets in everywhere. Remember that the Specials have no protective windscreen, and the muck, slush and cold seeps into every pore. Going in-car on this route is a whole lot of fun, though. While the thick mud also hides rocks and tree stumps, which caused a large number of flat tires in 06. The complete redesign of the route last year was met by the approval of all, and event organizer Willie Prinsloo says they've decided to tweak very little on the existing layout. He confirms our suspicions, though, and says the Ford Carnival City 400 has been notorious as a rainmaker for the East Rand, and I cannot remember an event where it has not rained. At this time of the year, rain could again be a big factor. Another bonus for spectators, on top of so many categories which are balanced on knife edge, is that the new route is very spectator friendly and lends itself to some good sightings of the cars as they speed by, as well as in the DSP area at Carnival City itself. The roadworks around the complex have also been fully completed, and this will also make it much easier for fans to get to see their favorite off-road racing team come blistering by. So it's been proven, the rain gods don't need a dance for it to rain, but 2007 national champion Duncan Voss will already be polishing his dancing shoes. However, the rest of the teams in with a chance of a championship win won't even be listening out for the band yet. They'll be lying awake in the small of night, wondering about rain, whether their cars will hold up and whether they'll be blessed or just plain unlucky. And the final race out of ABSA's 8-race championship series will have all the answers when the more than 80 teams converge on the gambling resort to fight it out. The mountains and Sarons will again test man, machine and backup crew to the limit and perhaps beyond. But when the checkered flag is unfurled, who will it be for? Hutchison celebrated in style last year. This time, there's a national championship at stake, and the motorite lads will want to do everything right again. The Ford Carnival City 400 starts on the 30th of November.